Welcome back to Reddit Story Time. Today we have four incredible stories. Let's dive right in.
Story number 1. Professor demanded exactly 1,000 words, so I counted every single one. This story comes from a college student who had a professor with an obsession for arbitrary rules. The assignment was a research essay, and the professor was notoriously strict about formatting. On the syllabus in bold red text, it said the essay must be exactly 1,000 words, not approximately, not around, exactly 1,000 words. No more, no less. Most students treated this as a guideline, writing somewhere between 900 and 1,100 words and hoping for the best. But our storyteller took a different approach. They wrote their essay, then sat down with a word counter and edited it to precisely 1,000 words. Every single word was counted, verified, and confirmed. But here's where the malicious compliance kicks in. The professor had also specified that contractions weren't allowed. So don't became do not, can't became cannot. Well, our storyteller realized that the professor's own rules created a problem. If contractions counted as one word but had to be written as two, then the word count was fluid depending on how you formatted it. So they wrote the essay entirely in the most verbose, contraction-free, technically precise academic language possible. Every single word was chosen to hit exactly 1,000. They even included a footnote stating, per the professor's own formatting requirements, this essay contains exactly 1,000 words as counted by the standard defined in the course style guide. When the professor tried to dock points, claiming the essay was too short, our storyteller pulled out the syllabus, pointed to the exact specification, and showed the word count was perfect. The professor had no grounds to deduct points. The best part? The next semester, the syllabus was changed to say approximately 1,000 words. Sometimes the best revenge is just following the rules exactly as written.
And the verdict, genius compliance. Story number 2, no shorts allowed, so I wore a skirt to class. This one comes from a high school student dealing with a heat wave and an absurd dress code. It was late May, the temperatures were pushing past 95 degrees and the school's air conditioning was, as usual, completely broken. The student wanted to wear shorts to survive the heat, but the school dress code explicitly stated no shorts allowed for any student, regardless of gender. Skirts and dresses, however, were permitted as long as they reached a certain length. So this student, who identified as male, walked into school the next day wearing a knee-length skirt. Now you can imagine the reaction. Teachers were confused, administrators were flustered, and the vice principal immediately called him into the office. The conversation went something like this. The vice principal said, "You can't wear that to school." The student replied, "The dress code prohibits shorts." "I'm not wearing shorts. I'm wearing a skirt, which is explicitly permitted under Section 3 of the handbook." The vice principal sputtered, "But that's not the spirit of the rule," and the student calmly said, "I'm following the letter of the rule, sir. It says nothing about who can wear what type of garment, only what garments are prohibited. Shorts are prohibited, skirts are allowed." The vice principal had to let him go back to class. Word spread, and within 2 days, half a dozen other male students showed up in skirts. By the end of the week, the school board held an emergency meeting and quietly updated the dress code to allow shorts during warm weather. Sometimes you have to expose the absurdity of a rule by following it to the letter. And the verdict, instant policy change.
Story number 3. Show your work, so I showed all of it. This is a classic from a math class that will make anyone who's ever been told to show their work smile. A high school math teacher had a strict policy that on every homework assignment and test, students must show all their work. No mental math, no shortcuts, no jumping straight to the answer. Every single step had to be written out, or points would be deducted. Now, our storyteller was actually quite good at math and could do many of the calculations in their head. But the teacher kept deducting points for not showing enough steps, so the student decided to comply. Completely. Absolutely. On the next homework assignment, a fairly standard set of algebra problems, the student wrote out every single mathematical step in excruciating detail. Not just the algebra, they went all the way back to first principles. For a problem like solving for x in a simple equation, instead of writing 3 or 4 lines, they wrote out the axioms being used, the justification for each transformation, and even included footnotes citing the relevant textbook sections. One problem that normally took a quarter page took up 4 full pages. The homework, which should have been maybe 3 pages total, came in at 37 pages. The student even included a table of contents. When the teacher received it, they were reportedly speechless. They couldn't deduct points because technically, the student had shown all their work, more than anyone else in the class. But they also couldn't reasonably grade a 37-page algebra assignment. The best part? The teacher quietly changed the policy the next week to say show sufficient work to demonstrate your process. No more requiring every single step. Our storyteller got full marks and a reputation as someone you don't want to challenge on technicalities.
And the verdict, 37 pages of compliance.
Story number 4, the attendance policy that destroyed the school's funding formula. This final story is the most consequential one, and it comes from a university student who discovered something interesting about their school's attendance policy. The university had a rule that students must swipe their ID card at a reader in each classroom to be marked present. The system was automated, and attendance was tied to funding. The university received money based on average daily attendance numbers. The problem? The policy stated that students must swipe in within the first 10 minutes of class and must not leave until the session ends. But it also said that if a student arrived late, they should still swipe in and their attendance would be recorded but flagged as tardy. Our storyteller noticed something. The system didn't actually distinguish between present and tardy for the funding calculation. Every swipe counted as a full attendance record, regardless of whether the student stayed. So following the policy to the letter, they swiped in for every class they were enrolled in, even on days when they arrived late and had to leave early for legitimate reasons. They attended enough to maintain passing grades, but they swiped in for everything. Then they wrote a carefully worded email to the administration, pointing out that per the official attendance policy, their swipe-in records were fully compliant, and asking for confirmation that this was the intended behavior. The administration, realizing the implication that every student could do this and inflate attendance numbers, had to scramble. They couldn't punish the student because they'd followed the exact policy. Instead, they quietly rewrote the attendance policy within a month, clarifying that students must remain for the full class period for attendance to count. Our storyteller's compliance with the letter of the rule exposed a flaw that could have affected millions in funding. Not bad for following the instructions.
And the verdict, system-level fix.
That's all for today. If you enjoyed these stories, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more. See you next time.